From Microbe TV, this is Office Hours for Wednesday, November 20th, 2024. I'm Vincent Racaniello, and welcome to your viral corner of the internet, where you can get your virology questions answered. We could talk about other things as well. So I want to thank our moderators tonight for being here. We have Steph SF, we have Barb Mack, UK, and we have Tom Steinberg. And thanks all of you for coming. This will be our last office hours for the next 2 weeks. Next week is Thanksgiving here in the U.S., and I know Wednesday evening people are traveling and so forth, so we won't have office hours then. But tonight, as usual, we'll answer your questions, but I do have a mini lecture. Before I get to that, tell us where you're from. We'll greet you. The mini lecture tonight is about why the science of RFK Jr. is all wrong. I think everyone needs to know this. I know that not everyone is in the U.S. here tonight. But such wrong statements cannot be allowed to stand. And I will go through some of the things he said and explain the science behind them, or the lack of his science, and convince you, I hope, that you can't believe a word that he says. Don't believe a word, a single word that RFK Jr. says. Let's see who's here tonight. First, Barb Mack is in the UK, where it's icy. Yeah, we're supposed to get cold weather now here in the US as well. Abdul Aziz is from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where it's 15C. Tom Steinberg is in Western Oregon. Wayne Hamilton is in Urbana, Illinois. Nicola is in Italy, 4 degrees and windy. Dagfinn is in Oslo, -2 Celsius. Rita is in Idaho, where it's 8 degrees Celsius. Ray's 11 is in NorCal, 50s. Fire EMS, cold and windy in Atlanta. Rima, hello, in Iowa, where it's freezing. Will is in Changsha, 10 degrees and cloudy. Steph SF, cold and rainy and windy and cold, 58F in San Francisco. Kang is in Chicago, where it's 2C and the sun has set with a mix of rain and snow. Costella is in Ohio. Welcome back. MK, Eastern Massachusetts, where it's 7 degrees Celsius. Patricia is in D.C. I have no representation in Congress. Just saying, in case anyone wants to write to someone else in D.C., we will give you a place where you can write to all of the senators at. Amy Rosenfeld's in the house. Join the Potter family and your moderator, Tom Steinberg, channeling your inner scientist. Of course, they have made videos saying why Microbe TV programs are good for them. They channel their inner scientists, and you can find out how to do that to microbe.tv/contribute. You can email them to us, or we have a Dropbox set up for that. So just go over there and find out what's going on. And we also have at microbe.tv/contribute little incentives, special things that you'll get as gifts for certain levels of donations. So check that out. Leo is in California, Mendocino, where it's 57. Philip is in the UK. Good morning. You are here for Livestream TWEVO this afternoon. Frank is in Santa Barbara. Ankley is in Norfolk, UK. David is in Dayton, Ohio. Cheryl is in Santa Rosa, California. Amy says, donate today and submit your audio video of how Microbe TV empowers you to use science. Vanity Nutrition's here. Hello, Vanity. Welcome and thank you for coming to moderate tonight. Rip de Camp is in Taos, New Mexico. Brian is in Montreal. Well, Eleanor writes, I'm glad Paul Offit is pushing back on the RFK. Paul has done so for a long time now on Beyond the Noise. And I put a video on YouTube which summarizes a few of those points. It's a 5-minute video which you could go check out and give to others. It's doing very well in terms of views. And I'm going to go over some of the points tonight as well, just to reemphasize, because it'll be good to have those points in another place. As many people as possible need to know that this man is 100,000% inappropriate for head of HHS. I'd be a better head. Elizabeth is in windy West Virginia. But I don't want to do it because I want to do Microbe TV. I like teaching. I don't want to administer anything. Eliza B. is in Toronto, cool and rainy. Dagfin says, we are well aware of the danger of RFK Jr. in Europe, and I'm honestly very, very scared. Yes, the effects are spreading beyond the U.S., so I will talk about what he says is nonsense and how dangerous it is tonight. And please give me your feedback, chat, ask questions. I want this to be a group effort here. Maureen is in windy Northeast Ohio. Margot is in Phoenix Metro, where it's 21C and 70F. My mic is too high. Okay. Yeah, it is a little bit red there. I'm going to pull it back a bit. 1, 2. Hello. Check, 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 check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that Peter? Is that better? Yeah, when I get excited, it overmodulates. I have a different interface that I had months ago. It's very good. I can really change the volume as opposed to the other one. I couldn't do anything with it. Hello, Kip. Saw Kip on Monday at the incubator, sitting in my doctor's exam room waiting to donate some epithelia to the derm gods. Good luck with that. Logotic, 3 degrees in Chicago. Martin, Sydney, 24C and sunny. Is it hopeful to expect that Trump's pick will select good teams? No, it is not hopeful. And I will tell you in part why tonight. Oh my gosh. This man, RFK Jr., has zero. Well, first of all the appointments are problematic. People are, for the most part, unqualified for these positions. I'm going to address RFK Jr. as head of Health and Human Services, which is in charge of the health of Americans. And a man with no medical training, no scientific training at all. He doesn't know anything. Every word out of his mouth scientific is wrong. This is just the wrong appointment. We have to make sure he's not confirmed. Let's see if the old guard Republicans have some guts and can say no to an obvious no. Laura, thank you for your contribution to science communication. Really appreciate it. We need everyone's support now because we are going to fight back this nonsense. We're going to try and prevent him from being confirmed. And if we can't do that, then we will have to fight beyond that to make sure that, for example, everyone has access to vaccines. You're having a bomb cyclone. Wow. Good luck with that. I hope you're okay. But thank you very much for your support. Visto is in Australia, where it's 25. GST Bio is Encinitas, 19C and getting dark. Tona is in the drought of Long Island. Ellen is in Westchester, New York. Better? Is this still too high? Can lower it some more. SRR is from Paso Robles. You're welcome. My pleasure. Dennis is in Miami. Must be nice and warm there. Joseph is in Ontario, Canada. Logotic is waiting for snow in Chicago. Doreen is in Hartford. Truth or Dare is in La Jolla. Mike and Lori are in Washington. Just got power back after a West Coast bomb cyclone. Winds up to 100 miles an hour. I guess that's what Laura was talking about. Truth or Dare already posted your pull off a debunking video on Twitter and Blue Sky. Good. Everyone needs to do this. Please, if you never did it before, just do it now. This is really important. Can't have this guy in charge of our health. PGL is Patty in New Hampshire. Welcome. Tom writes, science-based medicine and respectful insolence have been posting on the reckless, thoughtless RFK Jr. for many years. We've got to pull together even with differences. Yeah, now you may be a Republican and you like to break things and say silly things and be rude. But when it comes to your health, you only got one health, and you should change your tune for that. Jill is in Wilmington, Delaware. Bad Cat is in 46-degree Maine. Marg 716 just wanted to thank you for posting the clips from Dr. Office videos. We'll be posting more over the next days. We want as many people as possible to hear about this and know about it. Marie is in Boston, Massachusetts, where rain is needed. Yeah, Betty is in Washington Heights, right near the Inwood Park wildfires. Yeah, Inwood Park, know it well. Aditya or Anurag is from India, where it's 13 degrees. Welcome. Richard is in Portland, Oregon. Patricia writes, do you think I would be a better FDA commissioner than RFK? Let me put it another way. Do you think my area rug would be a better FDA commissioner? I'm sure you would be a better FDA commissioner, Patricia, just having heard your questions over the years here. But in past years, you usually have people with some qualifications in these positions, and this administration seems to feel qualification doesn't matter. We're just going to break the government, and it's still going to work is their philosophy, so we're going to show we don't need any stinking government. However, when it comes to health and morality, that's another thing. I mean, one guy nominated is immoral. Do most Americans want an immoral person as Attorney General? But let's stick to science. I don't want a person who knows zero science and lies about it as head of HHS. Hello, H. Sue from Austin, Texas. Haven't seen you in a while. Welcome back. Used to see you all the time. Hope you're well. Thank you for your support of science communication. We appreciate it and we need it. John writes, I could not agree with you more on this subject. I fear the U.S. may be on the precipice of an era of scientific regression, one that could mirror the disastrous consequences of Lysenkoism. Yes, I agree. We are on the edge of possibly a disaster. Not only could the U.S. is scientifically premier, right? Many countries, peoples come here to train to be scientists. Do you want to break that? Why? What's the point in breaking it? What is your logic in breaking it? There is none. There is zero, just to be contrary, because that's what this president is. So I think we're on the edge of breaking science, but also of starting new outbreaks of infectious diseases. And we'll get to that in the mini lecture. Barbara is in southern Ontario. And John writes, your contributions honestly representing science have never been more needed. Please watch your back. We will. You will. Dagfin writes, I'm spreading the word on RFK to everyone I encounter. will not rest until he's removed from public debate. It's incredible how many people think he's a good choice. It's unbelievable because those people are not thinking. And I hate to insult people. I don't want to insult people. But if you think he's a good choice, you're not thinking. You haven't looked up things you haven't read. Just watch my 5-minute video for Pete's sakes. 5 minutes. You spend hours watching sports. Give 5 minutes to find out why RFK Jr. is wrong. And don't make excuses. Thank you, SRR, for your contribution. We need your support now to move science forward. Miatona says his picks are like a Simpsons episode. All right, thoughts on Dr. Oz to lead, be in charge of Medicare and Medicaid. Okay, so Dr. Oz is a professor at Columbia University, so he's my colleague. And I have always spoken negatively about him. So as a physician and a surgeon, he should know about Medicare and Medicaid to some extent. He should know about medicine. But he also is a proponent of therapies that don't work. So I don't know how that would translate in being the head of Medicare. I really don't know if that's a problem. But at least he's an MD. All right? Let's just say that. His picks are like a Simpsons episode. Totally crazy, but that's what he wants. He wants to be just out there, as if it's okay in government to be just out there. The thing is, we had him once and we saw what he did, and now they brought him back again. I don't know what people are thinking. I really don't get it. Barb Mack writes, RFK thinks he can get rid of chronic illnesses and autoimmunity. It's not that easy. I've been a decade trying to fix myself and can't. What happens when people find out it's all lies? Now, he will not be able to fix chronic illnesses, certainly not at the expense of shutting down research on infectious diseases. I mean, how dumb, how utterly dumb is that? What will people do? Well, the thing is, people are going to get a lot of stuff thrown at them that they didn't bargain for because they didn't think when they voted. Like when he takes away Social Security and you don't get that check every month. Huh? What happened? Well, that's what you voted for. You should have been listening. So, forget it. He's not going to cure any chronic disease. And by the way, hepatitis B is one of those chronic diseases. And I'll tell you what he thinks about that. Have I seen RFK? Yeah, he's all steroided up. I saw a picture of him without a shirt. He doesn't have a body of a normal 60 plus. No, it's okay if he wants to exercise, but why does he have to steroid up and look all bulked up? That's his choice. Do we know who disinformed? I don't know if you mean JFK or RFK. It seems to be something he's done for years. I don't know. He's got an organization that's, Health for Children or something like that. And they just sell products. He makes money. There's a big marketplace in selling alternatives to vaccines. He's completely off on science. He's an expert in arguments, not biology. The thing about RFK Jr. is that he'll say something, and it'll be in the record many, many times. And then if you pin him down and say, I didn't really say that, this little innocent voice, I didn't really say that. That's why I say don't believe him. I'll give an example of that in a bit. Sometimes knowing nothing is better than knowing a whole load of lies and junk. Yeah, but with science, you need to know science. Okay, Fisto. And he's just not going to cut it. The USA is on the course of expertise regression. That's a good way to put it. The death of expertise. Here you're showing it. So either two things happen. You have all these idiots in places in power, and the government still works, and then they say, we don't need government, and they throw government away. Or it fails terribly, people die, and many other bad things happen. Measles parties will be back in vogue. Facts don't bring people out of a cult. There's a problem with his followers. They're in a cult. Yeah. But if he says something that's blatantly wrong and you say this is wrong, people, they won't believe you. No, you're wrong. You get into this. You cannot win that kind of argument with a cult. You're absolutely right about that. I know some RNs that are sharing videos supporting RFK. That's really crazy. Yeah, this country has jumped the shark. It's just crazy if that happens. Do I think it's about who's donating money? In part, yeah. But also his company makes money. Jill writes, I wonder if Dr. Oz is generally into therapies that don't work or if he's more interested in making a quick buck from shilling supplements to uninformed people. You know, he's a doctor. He took a Hippocratic oath, right? To do no harm. So where does using stuff that hasn't been tested fall into that? Now, Ray's has a great point, which I didn't know. He has over 600,000 invested in private Medicare companies. Yeah. So he'll probably want to trash Medicare. And this is the goal of everything. Trash all the government programs and privatize them. All right. I don't know what to say about that. I happen to think the U.S. Postal Service is fine. But, the guy who's running it is trashing it from within, and then they'll make it run by FedEx or something. I think that's slimy, that you have to break something and then say, look, it doesn't work. We need to privatize it. It's scum of the earth. I hate those kind of people. I really do. Just be honest. Let's see. Okay, so Patricia says this RN is not doing that, praising RFK, and many oppose him. Good. Miters, Ken in Brookline, Massachusetts, is lovely weather, but too warm and dry. I'm appalled at these crazy cabinet picks in general, but Kennedy is truly horrifying with his medieval science. Yeah, they're horrible. They are horrible. I read RFK is taking testosterone. I don't know anything about that. He can do with his body what he wants, but I guarantee he's got all the vaccines he needs in him, right? Which is really, it's so pathetic. Has anyone got a good draft to send to members of Congress? Yeah, I'm going to give you a website where you can go and put in your letter and push a button and it'll go out to all the senators. But, one would be, Dear Sir or Madam, I'm writing concerning the nomination of RFK Jr. I'm very concerned that he lacks the expertise for this position. His statements on vaccines and healthcare have all been proven wrong, and he has caused harm multiple times, such as in the measles outbreak in Samoa. I strongly urge you to vote against the confirmation of RFK Jr. So really short and sweet, but just get that email in so they say, oh my God, there are hundreds of thousands of people are emailing against RFK Jr. That will make a difference. It really will. Rita, I don't want health suggestions from a guy who infected himself with a brain worm through his eating choices. All right, Tona, you want to take fluorides out of drinking water. Now, what's the evidence that it does any harm? And, the teeth of Americans have been revolutionized by fluoride. That's why dentists give kids fluoride treatment in places where there is no fluorine in the water. So that's not really an issue, Tona. I'm sorry to say. David says the problem is that there is a great divide between the educated and uneducated, and will only get worse as the cost of higher education increases. There is a great divide, and we're going to throw away the education department and privatize it and let companies run it. And you know how that will work out. But there are some very smart people on the Republican side, which I don't understand. I think that the only explanation is financial, right? And they're willing to overlook all the other stuff. I mean, when Richard Nixon, The, the Republicans said, Richard, Mr. President, we can't support you anymore. You're going to have to resign. They knew what he did was wrong. It would never happen this day. It would never happen. Tell us how we can help you be more of a criminal. It's so disgusting. RFK is not misinformed. He's a liar. His lies are intentional to manipulate others, make money, and get power. Yeah. Okay, I think that's really well said, Elizabeth. What other countries are doing good science? Since the U.S. might not get the funding. Well, many European countries are doing good science. The UK, France, Spain, Germany, Netherlands. China's doing very good science these days. And India can do good science. Australia. And many of them have learned from the U.S. No, Visto said, I meant that thinking lies or science is worse than not knowing it all. Yes. Okay. Got it. Okay. We got a lot of questions about H5N1. We'll talk about it a bit later. Just hang on. Okay. Wayne says, I think private Medicare companies are not an alternative to Medicare. They're an exploiter, taking Medicare dollars, so they probably would not want cuts in Medicare funding. So I see, I don't even understand that. So I'll leave it up to you. Elena is in Reno. Privyet, Elena. 6C and about to start raining. Now, listen, folks, here there may be some Republican-leaning people, but you have to understand this is a science program, and this man is not good for science. So you have to read your senators, and even if you have Republican senators, they have to know how the people feel. Margot didn't admit Sunday. They said they're getting all their vaccine updates before January. They fear we won't have access. This is terrible. This is just terrible. The guy's not even confirmed, and just his words are scaring people into thinking they won't get their proper vaccines. It's ridiculous. PFAS, not fluoride. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I agree with that. The PFAS. Sorry, Tona. I immediately thought fluoride. Okay. Why are there no private companies in the commercialized production of Wolbachia-containing mosquitoes? Oh, there are. There are. I don't know private, but I guess they're all publicly traded, so technically they're not private. But you can just look it up and find some companies. There's one that's doing it in Florida and so forth. I'm not familiar with what the companies are, but it's certainly being done. Stephen, thank you so much for your contribution to science communication. We're going to need it here over the next few years. Godik says, I don't think Junior is in it for the money. He's a Kennedy. He's got money. What he is a true believer, which is much more dangerous. You may be right. Renatus is in Toronto. Good news. Physics girl is recovering from long COVID. Excellent. By the way, I would say that research on long COVID is part of infectious diseases research. Did you just want to stop that? How many millions of Americans have it? Do you realize that, folks, that you're not going to be able to have any cure if we don't do research? My God. Yes, PFAS. I'm sorry about the misread. Yep. Turtle is in Fort Hood, Texas, where it's 52 degrees. Yeah, the NIH, NCI, et cetera, used to be bipartisan programs. They were supported from both sides. And in fact, the Republicans used to support them to a higher extent than Democrats. Yeah. Yep. Okay. I'll get back to your H5N1 questions. I'm going to do a little chat about RFK Jr. Okay, folks? And you can throw questions and comments in during it. But my goal here is simply to point out some of the garbage he has said and explain why it's wrong. Okay, so this is overlapping with the video, but there's more than just the video. Okay. All right, so vaccines, RFK Jr. said vaccines are not subjected to placebo-controlled trials. You know why he says that? Because he has defined what he thinks a placebo is. He said a placebo can either be water or saline, and that's it. And none of them just do water or saline. So what the hell does he know about what a placebo should be? Has he studied them for 40 years? Has he ever designed a placebo-controlled trial? Of course not. Placebos. So in a typical vaccine trial, you have the vaccine, which contains, I don't know, mRNA, an antigen, an inactivated virus, and then some buffers and salts and stabilizing agents. And so the placebo is everything but the antigen. Okay, that's what a placebo is. That is the definition that has been used for years. That is how placebo-controlled trials are run. But he just made up his own rules so he can say, no, vaccines are not subjected to placebo-controlled trials. You see how slippery that is? Because according to his definition, they haven't been. Of course they have. And not only have they been subjected to placebo-controlled trials, but after licensure, they are followed for many years to show that they are safe, not only efficacious, but safe. So what is the issue here? There is no issue. My God. Okay, here's another one. Thimerosal is horrendously toxic. He has said this countless times. And I guess he thinks it's causing some of the chronic diseases. Well, there have been over a dozen trials. Thimerosal is a preservative that used to be used in many vaccines to prevent bacterial growth. So you have a multi-dose vial of vaccine. You go in and out multiple times with the needle, and to prevent contamination, a little bit of thimerosal. There was many trials showing thimerosal is safe. There were no adverse events. There were no long-term effects. But he ignores all that. It is not horrendously toxic. Nevertheless, it was removed from most vaccines. I think there are just some influenza, multi-dose flu vaccines that still have it. And I don't know why it was removed, because it's safe. Then why do you want to remove it? But the perception was so bad that CDC told manufacturers to remove it. But well, you can look at the trials, which I'm sure he's never done. It's not horrendously toxic. So another lie. All right, what do we have next? Oh, here's another one. Rotavirus vaccine is laced with thimerosal. So he was in the process of criticizing Paul Offit, one of the developers of the rotavirus vaccine. So rotaviruses are the cause of infantile diarrhea, gastroenteritis, very bad. Children can die of dehydration. So a vaccine is given early in life to prevent that. It's extremely successful. And by the way, is safe. And by the way, it's an infectious attenuated vaccine. No infectious attenuated vaccine has a preservative because they're single dose. You drink it. So you know you're not going in with a needle in a multi-dose vial. You have a single dose vial that you just drink. That's it. So all he had to do was read, but he didn't want to. He just wanted to make a story, and the people are going to not read. He's going to count on people not reading. This is a common theme, that he will say something and people go, oh my gosh, this is so horrible. How can we be doing this? Wait, are you sure we're actually doing this? We're not. But that's what he depends on, that we are not checking. We're not fact checking. Okay, another one. RFK claimed a study showed that infant monkeys inoculated with mercury-containing vaccines, thimerosal is a form of mercury, had evidence of brain inflammation. If you read the paper he referred to, there's no such conclusion in the paper. They did do an experiment where they inoculated monkeys with mercury-containing vaccines, but they did not find brain inflammation. Yet he made the conclusion he wanted you to hear. And again, he assumed people would not read the paper. And he's right, because people are outraged. How can we be using these mercury preservatives when they hurt monkeys? Well, they actually don't hurt monkeys and they don't hurt people. Okay, what's next? Here's one. Polio vaccine killed more people than it saved. He said this on Lex Friedman. So he said at the Lex Friedman podcast, I don't know of any vaccine whose benefits outweigh the risks. What a statement to make. What an idiotic statement to make. I'm sorry. It's like saying the earth is flat, right? So where does this come from? The early polio vaccines were contaminated with a virus SV40, which can cause cancers in certain animal hosts. Doesn't cause, so the natural host is monkeys, and it does not cause cancer in monkeys. And it causes cancer in the laboratory, like in mice. Okay. So almost 100 million people got polio vaccines that had SV40. And so, of course, the lawyers got on this and they say, oh, my client who got polio vaccine in the 50s now has cancer, and it caused his or her cancer. Epidemiological studies have shown that there is no higher risk of cancer if you got polio vaccine laced with SV40. And you may see studies where people say, oh, I have this cancer and it's got SV40 in it. Yeah, but if you don't have cancer, you can also find SV40 in you. Okay, so that means it didn't cause the cancer. Anyway, there's zero evidence. And by the way, SV40 was also given early in the 60s in the attenuated polio vaccines for a short time. There's no evidence that this is the case. Polio has prevented tens of millions of cases of paralysis. Polio vaccines have not killed more people than that by far. So this is another disingenuous statement meant to scare people. So that's one of the strategies of this administration, right? They scare people. You know, immigrants are going to take all your jobs. You're not going to have any job anymore. And all kinds of other scare tactics to vote them into office. So this is another one. These vaccines are horrible. None of them do what they say they do. Well, of course, vaccines have prevented many, many millions of deaths and diseases, severe diseases. The facts are out there. You just have to find them. They're not hard to find, especially these days. You know, there's an opinion piece in the Times recently by Osterholm, which I'll show you in a moment, which gives you the numbers. They're not made up. You can find them. So once again, preaching to people who are not fact-checking. All right, what's next? Oh, here's a big one. He advised the leadership of Samoa not to use measles, mumps, rubella vaccines, leading to 83 deaths. So what's going on here? I think it was back in 2008. 2 babies died within minutes after being injected with the MMR vaccine. And immediately it was found out that the nurses had used diluent. So the vaccine comes in Samoa. This was in Samoa. It comes in a powder. You inject water to reconstitute it. Then you inject that. They mistakenly used muscle relaxant, which was a huge dose, and it killed the 2 kids, sadly. And the 2 nurses went to jail for many years, which it was a mistake, but they shouldn't have done it, I suppose. Anyway, RFK was all over this and his organization, whatever it is. He said measles, mumps, rubella vaccine kills kids. He went to Samoa. He wrote the prime minister. He gave speeches saying this vaccine is killing kids. We shouldn't be using it. So the vaccine coverage in Samoa dropped from, 70% to 30%. They had an outbreak of thousands of cases of measles on the island, and 83 children died. you can argue it was a direct result of him preaching that the vaccine kills. Now, during the outbreak, he said this outbreak is caused by the measles vaccine, which is ridiculous. It was caused by wild-type measles virus. And then at some point, Samoa came to its senses and ignored him. They started vaccinating, and the outbreak stopped. Even then, he said, oh, it wasn't the vaccine that stopped the outbreak. It was good nutrition and clean water. So he would never admit that his misinformation was dangerous. He would never admit it. To this day, he would not admit that he was involved in any way. And it's a great example of how misinformation kills. Such a sad example, right? And this is what we could have in the U.S. You only need an outbreak of a few thousand cases of measles. If enough parents decide they don't want to vaccinate because he's lifted vaccination requirements for school entry, for example, then we can have many kids dying. And I don't know about you, but for me, one kid dying is one kid too many when it's preventable. What's next here? Oh, here's another one. Here's a good one. It goes to hepatitis B virus. So he said, hepatitis B virus is acquired by sharing needles, by drug use, or unprotected sex. He said, that's it. We should not be immunizing infants. And he says the use of Hep B vaccine causes sudden infant death syndrome. He said, the companies made this vaccine, the HPV vaccine, and the drug users and gay people didn't want it. So the companies went to CDC and said, what are we going to do? And the CDC said, we'll give it to babies. That's not what happened at all. Hepatitis B can be acquired from the mother at birth. Many, many thousands of kids in the U.S. alone get Hep B from their mothers at birth. That is why within weeks after birth, we immunize kids, babies, newborn babies against Hep B. It will prevent establishment of infection. Because if the kids are not vaccinated, they will go on to have a chronic infection for their whole lives. Over 90% of children infected at birth will have a chronic hepatitis B virus infection, and many of them will develop liver cancer and die. It's very interesting. If you're infected as an adult, you're able to clear the infection, but not as an infant. That's why we immunize babies against Hep B. What is this lying about why we use it? Why is he saying it's inappropriate? This is a vaccine only for sex and drugs. This is so wrong. A misrepresentation of facts. For me, it's stunning. I've been trained as a scientist to look at data and make conclusions. And when people start to lie about science, which has happened a lot in the last 10 years, I just can't believe it. Because all you have to do is read something about Hep B and you'll know this, that it's needed. You need to vaccinate babies. They're the most at-risk population. Oh, my God. What else? Okay, here's another one. He has said, you can find plenty of references to this. He has said that SARS-CoV-2 has been ethnically targeted. What does that mean? So he cites a paper where the authors looked at the ACE2 sequence in different ethnic groups. And so ACE2 is the receptor for SARS-CoV-2, right? And, this was actually in 2020, before the pandemic got full blown. The author said there's some amino acid changes in certain ethnic groups that we think would make infection more efficient. We think. Never proven. And in fact, having worked on receptors all my life, I seriously doubt that an amino acid change would make infection more efficient. I mean, it's already binding really well in all ethnic groups, ACE2 anyway. He actually testified in front of Congress about this. So it was a prediction, but he said it was a conclusion. And here are the ethnic groups. Some groups would be more susceptible, like Africans and non-Finnish Europeans, and others would be the least susceptible, including the Amish and Ashkenazi Jews. By amino acid changes in ACE2, it's a prediction. We have no idea. And in fact, this didn't turn out to be true at all if you go back and look at the data. It's just bad science to even predict that. You know, a virus reproduction cycle is very complicated, and receptor binding is just one step. So to think that, you know, an amino acid change in the receptor is going to make a big difference is absurd. But of course, that's a subtlety he would never understand. He just wanted to make this point. And by the way, he says it was ethnically targeted. That's implying that it was made, right? And he did imply that the virus was made in the lab, which is just not correct, right? It's just, it may be culturally still a thing, but scientifically it is not a thing. It was not made in a lab. It came from nature. I'm sorry, folks. Whatever you want to think, it didn't come from a lab. It came from nature. You can have your own thoughts and keep them to yourself, all right? All right, what else do we have here? All right, now, more recently, after he's nominated, he says, I'm not going to take away your vaccines. I just want parents to have the safety data so they can make their own decisions. What are you talking about, the safety? That safety data are all out there. It's public. You can go to the website and you can see all the data that were accrued to get licensure, plus all the data that accrued after licensure. And you can see all the adverse events and all the long-term events. It's already there. Nobody's hiding anything. It's almost like, oh, I have to do things to get this data. And then he wants the parents to make decisions about vaccination. And that's a big problem, right? Because the parents are not going to read it. They don't have time. They don't understand it. And so many of them will just say no. Right now, the states make the decision, and they're guided by CDC. The CDC recommends, say, this vaccine for children, then states make a decision. It's needed for school entry, and then some states have exemptions. But he could remove all the school entry decisions there and maybe leave it up to the parents, which is a disaster. But when he says, I'm not going to take away your vaccines, I would not believe him for a minute. He is a chronic liar, as you've seen from everything I've just shown you. Why would you believe that he's not going to take away your vaccines? Don't believe a word he says. Now, a few more slides here on the 2025 product, right? This is a 900-page document, which is the way the right wants the government to be after the inauguration. It covers many different aspects of government, but it also covers CDC, FDA, and NIH. So let's you know, RFK would be able to influence decisions at all of these institutions. So one of the things in the 2025 project is that CDC won't be allowed to mandate vaccines or masks. Right? They say CDC should be removed from all this. Well, first of all, they don't mandate vaccines or masks. It's the states, okay? It's not CDC. CDC makes recommendations, always. They have no power to enforce anything. They say, we recommend you do this, and then the states take that recommendation and make their own decisions. As you see, Florida decided not to use mRNA vaccines. And so, but more importantly, the FDA would be underneath RFK Jr., right? So he would be responsible he could influence clinical trials. He could have them designed in such a way that would discourage companies from even developing vaccines in the first place because it would be too hard. So he would say, I want you to use water as a placebo. And most reputable companies will say, no, we're not going to use water. We need to do a proper placebo-controlled trial. So you can see there can be a lot of tension here. And if you want to read more about this, there was just an opinion piece in the New York Times by Michael Osterholm and Ezekiel Emanuel, and how Kennedy could make it harder for you and your family to get vaccinated. And in this article, they point out that he said, no, I'm not going to take away your vaccine. I just want parents to have the data. And even someone in Congress has said he just wants parents to have the data so they can make their own decisions. That doesn't work, as I've just said. So don't be stupid. Oh, my God. Another part of the 2025 project, the FDA has not they say the FDA has not provided a way for Americans to obtain vaccines made in aborted fetal cells. Okay, so this was the basis of a Beyond the Noise post by Paul Offit. So let me get the facts straight. So they say that thousands of Americans of faith want to get vaccines, but they're not allowed to get vaccines that were made in aborted cells. Not allowed. That's not true. You choose not to take them. The Pope, at least for Catholics, very large religion, has said, okay, these vaccines are made in aborted cells, but you know what? Your health is more important than religious objections. The church is all about protecting people, including their health, and he recognized that. And he said it's okay. So this idea that they are not allowed to receive is just a lie. Now, they also say there are alternatives not made in aborted cells, made elsewhere, and the FDA won't let us use them. Well, in fact, so they name chickenpox, hepatitis, and MMR vaccines made in fetal cells. So chickenpox and Hep A are not actually grown in aborted fetal cells. So, and they don't exist anywhere in the world. So you think they could get their facts straight? Well, no, getting facts straight is not part of their agenda, right? They know exactly what they're doing. But some rubella vaccines, the MMR is made in aborted cells. The two cell lines, WI38 and MRC5, they were made from elective abortions, one in Sweden and one in England. There are other rubella vaccines in Japan that don't use aborted cells, but they have to be tested in American children before they can be used here. They would not just be used based on clinical trial data from Japan. And the cost of that is very high, and companies are not wanting to do it. And you bet the government's not going to do it going forward. You want to pay for the trial, RFK Jr.? And so we can't assume that they would work here. It's a different population. But the most galling thing that to me is that the Pope actually said, your health is more important than our religious objection. We know it's terrible to abort a fetus, but your health is more important. Oh my God. Peace. Just a couple more, folks. So RFK wants to have 8 years of infectious disease-free research. This is so idiocy. I can't even speak properly. He's a guy who has no medical training, no science training. He's a lawyer, and he wants to stop infectious disease research. And he's using testosterone, which, it's not infectious disease research, but certainly is science made by science research. So what is the issue if we stop all infectious disease research? Well, let's think. In 2020, we had this new virus, SARS-CoV-2, emerging. And the NIH started to do research on mRNA vaccines, and eventually those were approved within a year, and it saved millions of lives. I don't care what you think about COVID and how serious it was. What you think is irrelevant. COVID was a big deal, and it killed a lot of people globally and here in the U.S. The death rate still in the U.S. here is more than in most other countries from people who don't get the proper treatment. But the vaccines were terrific. And we wouldn't have, if we have a pandemic, an H5N1 pandemic next year, you're not going to get a vaccine, folks. You're not going to get an antiviral. Nope, because he's going to stop infectious disease research. So you see how stupid this is? And there could be other pandemics as well, but not just pandemics. Well, anyway, those mRNA vaccines were done through infectious disease research, and they were worked on for years beforehand. It was considered infectious disease research, and the only reason we were ready to make COVID mRNA vaccines was because of that work. And he would cut all of that out. So you'd have an 8-year gap, and even if he left, well, he's not going to be around for 8 years, right? 4 years. And even if he left, it would take a long time to fix the system. What else? Mpox, right? Suddenly, Mpox rears its head in Africa and spreads to other countries. It comes to the U.S. People start freaking out. We need to do research to figure out what's going on. That's called infectious disease research. We wouldn't be able to do that under his directorship. Just think about that. Ebola, big outbreak, West Africa, 2015. We went over and helped them. We did infectious disease research. Wouldn't be able to do that. Polio is still a big problem. We had a case in the summer of 2022. We have poliovirus in our environment. We have other enteroviruses increasing in prevalence, and people are working on these and doing infectious disease research. You wouldn't be able to do any of that. This is an idiocy, a statement of idiocy that if anyone makes this statement, you shouldn't take them seriously because it makes zero sense. Every country in the world who can does infectious disease research because there are a lot of infectious disease agents out there and they take their toll on human lives. And, the Department of Health and Human Services is charged with protecting the lives of Americans. And that includes doing infectious disease research. So this is ridiculous. Yeah, someone just posted, make measles great again. Make infectious diseases great again. Just a comedy of errors. Also, he's going to dismiss 600 NIH employees. Okay. Now, why did you decide you had to dismiss 600 employees? You really think there's that much fluff at the NIH? Apparently, he's going to dismiss a lot of high-level scientists because he doesn't think what they're doing is of value. Really? Have you studied it, actually? Have you gone through the numbers and seen what these people do? I doubt it. You're just pulling this out of your you-know-what. I mean, if there were a reason to cut 600 people, it would be fine. He wants to also shrink the NIH. If there are reasons to do that, that's fine. And Congress has already suggested that. But just saying, I'm going to fire 600 people, maybe 300 of them voted for Trump, Yeah, look, you should have thought twice. What else here? Yeah, the 2025 project, the other thing, they said the NIH is a bad place. Funding for scientific research is controlled by a small group of highly paid and unaccountable insiders. This is just BS. Funding is not controlled by a small group of highly paid and unaccountable insiders. Funding is determined by study sections composed of 20 scientists and an administrator who vote and score your application, and if it gets a good score, it gets funded. It's nothing to do with a highly paid person, and there's no highly paid people there. These are government levels. I wouldn't say that they're highly paid. In the same report, which should make you trust anything in that report, even less, they say children are at little to no risk from COVID-19. Thousands of children in the U.S. alone have died of COVID. Is that little to no risk? No, it's not. It just shows that they have no idea what they're talking about, the authors of the 2025 report. They're so smug in that they think this is the way government should be, yet in terms of science anyway, they have no idea what they're talking about. All right, that's all I'm going to tell you, but I want to give you this. Write your senators to oppose the nomination of RFK Jr. as head of HHS. You go to this website, safecommunitiescoalition.org/RFK. safecommunitiescoalition.org/RFK. You can type in your letter, your little short to the point letter, and hit a button, and it will go to as many senators as you want. It's really nice. Safe Communities Coalition is a nonprofit. They reached out to Microbe TV and said, "Can you help us spread this website?" So we've been publicizing it in our programs. So that's just an example of how you cannot believe a word of what RFK Jr. says. Because scientifically, everything he says is wrong. It's provably wrong. The facts are all out there. Polio kills more people than it helps. This is just Hep B. Babies don't need Hep B. This is all stupidity, right? All right, let's take some questions now. Oh boy, this is crazy stuff. All right, let's see here. Get back to our messages. We'll go back to the top because there were some questions. So there were a bunch of questions about H5N1. What do you think? Is H5N1 going to be a problem? Let's find one and we'll bring it up here. Oh, well, here's one from Kang first. Oh, Kang says, is like tilting at windmills, but would the Senate listen to the medical and research establishment during confirmation hearings with letters to senators change minds? Yeah, if you get enough letters in, it will. But you have to get many, many thousands of letters. And then they see, oh, many people this is a hot button issue for many people. So as you know, the Republican Party is divided. We have these MAGAs, and then we have the old guard Republicans, right? And they're horrified by much of this. And one can only hope that they have some spine and vote against at least some of these confirmations. I mean, this is I'm just talking about science here, HHS, but the other ones are horrible as well. But, there will have to be some, I don't know how the confirmation hearings will work, right? It's largely made up of elected officials, right? And hopefully they will make good questions and follow up, right? So did you say that? Did you say this in Samoa? Oh no, I never said that. And oh well, here's a headline, or here's a document proving that you wrote this to the Prime Minister of Samoa. So you have to be careful. It's very slippery, right? And the people on the committee, which should be balanced, cannot challenge him, or they can challenge him. So I think we can make a difference for sure. Yeah. All right. So there were a bunch of H5N1 questions. Basically, what's your assessment, right? Look, nobody can predict what's going to happen. Here's my view. H5N1 has spread globally in birds, more so than ever. It's infecting other animals as well. Excuse me, my laptop here just died, which shows me the live stream. And in the U.S., cows have been infected. So the virus got into cows. It changed slightly, and now it's going from cow to cow. It's causing a mild disease in cows. And a number of dairy workers have been infected, and in general, their diseases have been mild. But, more and more people get infected in the U.S., and other animals are also infected besides cows. So the more animals that are infected, the more chance there is that the H5N1 will swap genes with another influenza virus, which will make it transmit really well among people. So far, it doesn't transmit among people, right? And maybe that's an insurmountable goal. Maybe it can't. I don't know. We know that certain amino acid changes in H5N1 will make it transmissible in ferrets, but those are ferrets and they're not people. Anyway, I could talk a long time, but we don't know what's going to happen, but we should be prepared, okay? Because we're watching it. and it's infecting a lot of animals. And there is a chance, of course, that it could. So what has to happen is it has to become a human virus. It has to transmit from human to human. Right now, it does that very poorly. And if it did that, there would be very little population immunity to H5N1. So it would cause a pandemic if it could transmit among people. That's the key. So we need to be ready. But if we're in a RFK Jr. era, we would not be able to be ready because there's no infectious disease research. Okay? We have vaccines and antivirals, but we need to do research to make sure what's circulating is susceptible to them or can be controlled by them. It's not a matter of just pulling the vaccine out of a stockpile and giving it to people. We need to know if it's going to work. You couldn't do that in an RFK admin. So if you ask me, am I more frightened of RFK Jr. or H5N1? The answer is very clear. RFK Jr. is far scarier than any virus, in my opinion. So we need to be ready. And today, in the current administration, we can carry out infectious disease research and we can be ready. But, ask me the same question after January 20th. I'm not sure what I can tell you. Oh my gosh. It's crazy, right? That's H5N1. Okay, Frank asks, from your lectures, I got the impression that susceptible and permissive are dichotomous terms. But from the last TWIV, I have learned that there are different degrees of susceptible and different levels of permissive. So let's define them. These are cells in culture. This is strictly cells in culture. Susceptible means there's a receptor. So that's all or none. I mean, we don't talk about less susceptible or more susceptible. That's not the definition of susceptible. It's whether you have a susceptible cell has the receptor for the virus. A non-susceptible cell does not. A permissive cell can support the production of infectious virus. A non-permissive cell cannot. Yeah, there can be variations. A cell can make more virus for whatever reason. There's something inside the cell that works differently. But as for just the definitions, it's a binary. Okay, that's how we look at it virologically. Craig tells us trivia. HHS Secretary is 12th in line of presidential succession. Closer if some higher on the list are ineligible. Oh my gosh. 12th, huh? Yeah. Here we go. This is, for example, Mateo. I've heard it could cause a pandemic. Yeah, it could. If it becomes transmissible among humans, there's no population immunity, so it could cause a pandemic. Yeah, we should point out that infectious disease research has not only identified Hep C, but led to amazing antivirals that can cure the infection. And you want to get rid of that capability. It's just nonsense. Expertise regression. I really like that. So bad cats, and I think I picked this up before, measles parties will be back in vogue. This is assuming you can't get a measles vaccine, but we hope it will never get to that there will be enough pushback at multiple state levels. It's up to the states now, although sometimes they don't have the information they need without CDC guidance, but it's going to be up to the state to get kids safe, get them vaccinated. Anyway, once again, maybe someone has a draft of a letter that you could send to Marge 716 here. I'm sure many of you do. That would be helpful. you heard about the kid in California who has H5? Yeah, I mean, there was one in Canada, right? If you get it from cows, it's typically mild in people, but if you get the bird version, then it can be lethal. And am I doing anything to prepare? Well, I think you see what we're doing now. We're being advocates. We are speaking up. We're trying to inform people with videos and with live streams like this one. We have a great audience tonight of over 200 people. So maybe people are looking for information. So we'll be here to do it. Here's another one. Should I be concerned as I am? After January 20th, yeah, you should be. Rob, thank you for your contribution to science communication. Oh, here's another one. Candida auris, a growing fungal infection threat in hospitals. We need infectious disease research to try and control it. We're not going to be able to do that. Can you imagine? We can't develop new antibiotics. That's infectious disease research. Do you get how dumb a statement that is? How utterly dumb. But maybe that's the point. You know, you may say, oh, we don't need a Department of Education. We don't need this or that. We need science. Science makes everyone's lives better. And you could argue till the cows come home. I don't care. I'm not listening because there's no question. Science makes your life better. Patricia says the Weston Price Foundation is the beginning of the spread of all the anti-vax, anti-science information. It had good initial intentions on getting us back to real food and traditional cooking, but now it's anti-vax, anti-science. I didn't know that. Thank you. Thank you very much for telling us that. Steve, thank you for your contribution to science communication. Really appreciate your support tonight, folks. Tom writes, also good science in Central and South America, but what's happening in Argentina is a warning. Jill writes, it certainly lit the fire under my butt to finally get my Shingrix shots. You know, I think CVS and drugstores are going to be selling vaccines. So adults, you can make your decisions. The real issue is childhood vaccinations and school entry requirements. Also, FH says, I also commented on Facebook that folks call their senators from any state they live in. Party affiliation does not matter in this case. Okay, thank you. Patricia says, the Price Foundation then started spreading the false information on fluoride, measles causing autism, which it does not. Food pyramid is bad. I could go on. It was founded in 1999. Older and wiser. I'm of the age for getting a pneumococcal vaccine. There are a few out there. Which is best? You ought to write Daniel Griffin, daniel@microbe.tv. If you do so tonight, I'll put it on the list for tomorrow's program because I don't know what to tell you on that. I will admit when I don't know something. And if I say something that's wrong, I'll correct it. Like I thought Tona meant fluoride. No, she didn't. I misread. I'm wrong. Yeah, I make mistakes. Vincent, could they not come at you for defamation or stuff like that? I have to be careful, right? What I say the statement that vaccine has killed more people than prevented paralysis, that's scientifically incorrect. The fact that Hep B should not be given to kids is wrong. I could point out the errors, but sometimes I get a little bit too excited and I call people liars, and that's not good. I agree. I want to be careful. I don't want to be shut down, and then that we can't spread the message, right? RFK Jr. isn't wrong about everything. There is a health crisis. Yeah, there is a health crisis, but shutting down infectious disease research is not going to solve it. Yeah, there are lots of chronic diseases we've been working on for years. Not going to solve them in 2 years. Red Hen was in the Pfizer COVID vaccine trial and was in the placebo group with 22,000 people. And the placebo was not water or saline. It was the vaccine minus the mRNA. Okay? That's a placebo. Hello, Carol, our nephrologist from California. We're at 60F. Welcome. Is not the refusal of vaccine a kind of placebo? Yeah, but they're not getting anything. So you could argue that the act of injection of the substance is doing something. You have to tease that out by having a placebo and a vaccine group, right? So you can use the information of from people who do not get vaccinated to further look at population immunity and the effect of vaccination on disease patterns, but you can't use it for licensure. You need a placebo control for licensure. Les, I know Les joined us some time ago, but hi, Les. Thanks for coming. Our moderators. HRC RFK is a perfect example of anti-establishment paranoia. If he wasn't a Kennedy, he'd be a low-level grifter and not HHS secretary, most likely. I wouldn't say grifter. That's the kind of thing that could get us in trouble. Well, you can say that. But yeah, there's a certain cachet to being a Kennedy. But there are many people in this MAGA group, right? This group that thinks that what they think should be applied to everyone in the U.S. And many millions of people did not vote for him, by the way. I know that's the way the system works. But there are a lot of people who just have crazy views. I don't see him as anything unusual in that MAGA group of people. Is it bad I don't know who this RFK is? No, it's not bad. You're better off not knowing. It just gives you such agony. We are up to some rough times. Yeah, I think we are. I don't know what the chances are of blocking his nomination, right? The Republicans they can't reject all of his nominees, so they probably have to pick one or a few. Because he's a vengeful guy, and if you do something he doesn't like, he will figure out a way to get back at you. And this is one of the behavior sets that really bothers me. This vengefulness, Yeah. So, we're going to have rough times either way. FH says, I love your show, but tonight I'm so angry. But golly Moses, keep up the fight. I will do my little part and increase our contribution to Microbe TV. In fact, I will donate on Patreon so it's doubled. Thank you very much. If you want to get it doubled, go to parasiteswithoutborders.com. That's Daniel Griffin's donation website, and then he will double it. Only up to $20,000 though. So, you can do that now early in the fundraiser. But thank you very much for your support. Is it possible that Big Pharma will lobby against RFK's nomination? There would be reasons for them to do so, but then they would feel that they would get retribution from Trump, right? Because he's that kind of guy. Say, okay, you need something from China, we're going to put a 50% tariff on it. Stuff like that. I hate that kind of behavior. I dislike it intensely. But they might. I don't know all the subtleties Aerozone, so I'm not sure. Here, let's see. Will has some facts. Well, annual morbidity in the 20th century before and after vaccines. Measles before, 530,000. Deaths after 47. Mumps before, 160,000 after 429. Rubella, 50,000 after 3. Saved many, many lives. Only a fool would say it didn't. Oh, there I did calling him names again. Diphtheria before, 20,000 after 2. Smallpox before, 30,000 after 0. Polio before, 16,000 after 0. So there you go. If you have personal stories about vaccines, you could include them in your letter to the senator. I personally my life has been saved by vaccines, and I don't want to see infectious disease research interrupted. There are already preventable deaths in the future caused by RFK's dangerous misinformation. Yes, right. That's really good. I like that, HRC. Yeah. WAPF, this organization that Patricia has been telling us about, believes all that is needed is nutrient-dense foods, fat-soluble vitamins, clean water, and you'll cure all diseases. No, we know this is not the case because there are many people who do have healthy lives. They do this, and they don't get vaccinated, and they die of infectious diseases. So WAPF is wrong. Anyway, science is not a belief system, right? It's all about facts. It's all about facts. Hello, Lise. Welcome to Office Hours, where we have been discussing RFK Jr. So you might want to go back and listen to this at some point. And yes, Margo, there's lots of SIDS before the Hep B vaccine. RFK Jr., you know what he says? I'd never heard of SIDS before the HPV vaccine. These little personal anecdotes that people find hard to counter. But all you have to do is look it up, right? Yeah, there was SIDS for a long time. Turtle Metal. I just found your lectures. Thank you for breaking it down for me. Barney style, helping me through virology. I don't know if it's Barney style, but I try to break it down. We're going to have another virology course next semester. Gear up. That'll be interesting. Marxist, etc. says the lying and grifting is extremely enraging. Yeah, I don't really like it. You'll find, Patricia writes, you'll find everything and more that RFK is citing in the WAP website and 1 out of 4 one quarter journals. Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Elizabeth says, I've heard all this BS before, but it's so infuriating and depressing to hear it all at once. The fact that anyone listens to RFK Jr. at all is the great shame of our time. Yeah, this party has made a very good use of communications. And I have to say the Democrats have not done well, right? They have not pushed their story forward. They should have, because it's the obvious choice. But the MAGA Republicans have commandeered communication. They got Fox News on their side, biggest news channel, and they just spew nonsense about many things. Not everything, but many things. It is a shame because, as I said before, I was brought up, I was educated where truth is truth, right? And if this vaccine is needed at a certain age, that's it. And you don't have someone come along and say, no, it's not, with no basis for that. It's just stunning, right? It's a shame. It really is. Yes, Marxist. I didn't say that, but he said the vaccine, SARS-CoV-2 was designed to specifically not target Chinese people or Jews because he's an anti-Semite, most likely. But I can't say it, but I don't want to be sued and brought down, right? We want to be able to talk. To anti-vaxxers, I usually say, if you get bit by a rabid animal, don't take the rabies vaccine shots and see how that works out for you. Oh, they'll say, oh, I know what vaccines are good for me and what are not. I got in an argument years ago with somebody who was an anti-vaccine, and she said, oh, I know which vaccines to give my kids. I know the polio vaccine is important. I've done my research. Actually, you haven't done your research. What you've done is go online and listen to other people ranting about vaccines. Because if you do research, you need to look up the literature and read the papers. And it's really hard. Believe me. Michael Schmidt. Hello, Michael. What about the poor dentist? As who has bled while undergoing routine dental care, we require all dentists to be vaccinated to protect themselves and future patients for gloves, leaks, and needle sticks. Yeah, that's a good point, Michael. But also, yeah, many other examples of that as well. So it makes you think that we can't let this man be confirmed, right? Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. Safety data should include the consequences of child being infected without vaccination. Well, in the licensure data, that would be the infection, the disease rate in the placebo arm, right? So without vaccination would be like the placebo arm. So they do that, and you can get it. Yes, Vista wants not Vista. RFK wants parents to decide. That's right. After he scares them with horrible lies, he'll say, you know, you don't want to give your baby Hep B vaccine, causes SIDS. And it's not needed because babies don't get Hep B. Only drug addicts and people engage in sex. Ay, ay, ay. You know, I don't want to depress everyone. I just want you to have a call to action, right? Right. The biggest thing we can do now is right. And I just tried tonight to convince you if you need convincing, and if not, to have some ammunition. He's not going to take away our vaccines. He's just going to take away all federal funding, so all vaccines would be unaffordable. How is that giving parents a choice? Also, he'll try and force states. All right, so I've been told this is stupid, but federal government gives money to states. So he said, well, if you have a vaccine entry requirement, you're not getting this money. We're not going to fund your state health department. So that's an example, right? He can't take them away, but he can make it hard. Yeah. Nevitz, did Vincent mention that that 83 children that died on the island? Yes, we did talk about that story. We did. Did a little mini lecture, which you might want to look at, going through a lot of the points that RFK Jr. has said that are wrong. All of them, of course. Yes. Patricia writes, I have almost all WAPF journals up to the first year of COVID when I decided I needed to know the truth and found TWIV. Thank you, Patricia. I'm glad we're useful. WAP touts making healthy babies raw milk, liver cod oil, no vaccine. Nonsense. Truth or dare? Anyone have a sandwich board? Why do you say that, Truth? Because it's contaminated with bacteria from chicken? Patricia writes, I shudder to think what's going through patients' minds who are in the hospital watching certain outlets featuring RFK. Yeah. Yeah. How Kennedy could make it harder for you and your family to get vaccinated. That's the opinion piece that I mentioned. Thank you, Les, for bringing that up. What does science say about the cause of autism? Well, it's we don't know. It's not vaccines because it's been checked dozens of times. Um, and there's autism in some communities that have never used vaccines, especially MMR. But it's likely genetic, right? An environmental combination, as always, and probably microbiome as well, which would be the environmental component. But we don't know, and it's a complicated disease. It's not one thing, so it's a spectrum of different things. So it's not easy to put a finger on one thing, and people are working on it. Fortunately, it's not infectious disease research, right? So it can continue after January 20th. He probably has issues with HPV vaccine, one of the most efficacious ones out there. I don't know. It's interesting. I have not seen something. Let's look it up. RFK Jr. on HPV vaccines. So he's filed lawsuits against Merck. He says the HPV vaccine is dangerous and defective and causes severe and life-changing injuries. You see the problem? Back in 2023, in Immunize Colorado, which is a pro-vaccine organization, he said he would gut funding for federal health agencies that monitor and recommend schedules for childhood vaccines. So he would gut funding. See, that's what I was telling you before. That's his modus anyway. Oh, boy. So, yes, he has issues with HPV vaccines. I believe also that the right wing is embracing RFK Jr. in order to further demonize the Kennedy family in general. I don't know anything about it. You might be right. Hello, John. Thanks for stopping by. Thanks for your support. Look at it later. You might like it. Until he gets a bad infection. So this is interesting, right? Trump got COVID and he got great medical care and he could have died. His O2 sat was pretty low. But he had no problems taking all this medical care, right? Yet he didn't want to push COVID vaccines after that. I don't get it. Trupti writes, do low-tech heat inactivated live killed vaccines, which were the earliest and used earlier, made with horse serum and conjugated with alum, have had lesser side effects? All right, so we don't use horse serum anymore, right? We have inactivated vaccines. Some of them have adjuvants, but not all of them. The mRNA vaccines have a lot of side effects, more than most vaccines. For example, more than Novavax, the protein version, because the nanoparticle is highly immunoinflammatory. That's part of how it works. So yes, it's the mRNA vaccines so at the injection site, you're going to have soreness and maybe you'll have a fever for a few days and so forth. I believe all medical scientific researchers and professionals should sign a petition against having RFK Jr. and Dr. Oz appointments. Here at office hours, we were like-minded in many ways, but you wouldn't get all to sign. I would sign for sure, but you're never going to get all of them. Environmental hello. We're going to really need to get this channel traction again. Yeah, we used to get a lot more people. Maybe we can get more attention. I don't know how to do it, frankly, but this is what I know how to do, to come here and talk with folks and get ideas. But many of you now are going to go out and tell your friends to write their senators, and so forth. So that's good. Yep, there we go. Make measles great again. Elizabeth says, how much you want to bet the first funding that gets approved will be for ivermectin research for treating everything? We've already done many clinical trials for treating COVID, right? It doesn't work. It works for a specific disease. Oh my gosh. Why do we have to have ignorance run science? This is a 5-alarm fire, and it doesn't even touch on the climate crisis, which is not going away. Yes. That's absolutely right. And, as Trump denied it, he said it doesn't exist. He pulled us out of the Paris agreements because it's not convenient for business profits. And this is not a person who cares about others. He doesn't care about the environment and its impact on others. If Ariozan says, if RFK was merely stupid, we could possibly tolerate him for 4 years, but he's dangerous to all of us. Well, that's the thing. He's dangerous. And he is in a position where discouraging vaccination could be a problem. Yeah. Swamp Monk is very concerned about emerging pathogens. Yeah, there's Candida auris, multi-drug resistant organisms. Public health is going to suffer by being hamstrung. Vistos, infectious disease research, and the solutions it provides is what separates us humans from the dinosaurs. It has made our lives good. It has made our lives go from an average lifespan of 30 to over 70. That's infectious disease research and public health. So, do you want the curve to start going back down again? Yeah, stop infectious disease research. MRSA, vancomycin-resistant enterococci, all these things require ongoing infectious disease research. Just go, listen to TWIV and TWIM. That's what we talk about all the time on those programs. I read that one state is preventing their health department from administering COVID vaccines. So Idaho, I believe, they used to provide COVID vaccines, and now they will no longer provide them, but they said recommend you buy a health kit which contains ivermectin and azithromycin, I think. Something that works to something that's snake oil. I just don't get it. I don't get it. Luther asks, what's the difference between a more pathogenic and a more virulent virus? So pathogenicity is the state of being pathogenic. You are either pathogenic or you are not. So this virus causes disease. This virus does not. It's pathogenic or it's not. Virulence is the quantification of pathogenicity. Virulence is the way we measure how pathogenic a virus is. Okay, so pathogenic is just a yes or no. Virulence is the gradation in between. It's a good question. RFK Jr. has not even done a needs assessment to determine how to downsize these NIH employees. I highly doubt he even knows how to do such an assessment. Probably not. Yeah, why does he want to take away 600? Why? What's the reason? No, there's no reason. I agree with you totally. Totally agree with you. Yeah, so long COVID is another issue. I'll bring it up again. This research on long COVID is infectious disease research because it has an infectious disease trigger. Are you going to stop long COVID research? A lot of people, millions of people are going to be pissed off, but I don't think they realize that. Maybe they think it falls under the chronic disease. It is a chronic disease, but you have to do work on the virus and the vaccines and antivirals to understand it. Hmm. I think we already have H5N1 vaccines, but not tested. So we have H5N1 vaccines. They have been tested, but whatever causes the pandemic, right? If H5 ends up causing a pandemic, we will need to know if the vaccine works, right? We have to get, um, we'll have to do a clinical trial. So that's infectious disease research. I just worry that it's not going to be permitted. Is it going to have a clause that says, except in the case of a pandemic, well, you can do infectious disease research? Well, you know what? If you break the infectious disease establishment, you can't just have people start up and do infectious disease research next week. It doesn't work that way. We saw that with COVID. A lot of people came to work on COVID with no experience of virology, and boy, did they mess it up. Didn't RFK say that he doesn't believe AIDS is caused by? I don't know. I don't know. He wrote a letter to the Prime Minister of Samoa. That's right, saying measles vaccine kills kids. Right. Heather Cox Richardson is a good person to follow. Yes, I read her column every day. It's very depressing because when Heather says this is problematic, this nomination is problematic, then you worry because she's usually very measured. Oy, oy, oy. Uh, hard to think of normal questions. Why so crazy in the U.S.? I don't know, because this MAGA group got a hold of people. They got them, and that's how it works. Democracies let everybody have a voice, and then one group can get a bigger voice and take over, unfortunately. Vanity writes that Obamacare is trending on X because people are just realizing ACA and Obamacare are one and the same. That's another thing. I worry. I know so many people who have benefited from ACA. And I have a feeling they're going to take it away. The Republicans tried to take it away many times, but now they have the Congress. They could do it and privatize it. Well, it's already privatized, but do it in a way that makes them a lot of money. Ay, ay, ay. And by the way, Ukraine, goodbye, right? But he's going to be he is buddies with Putin. So he'll say, Donald, get your troops out of there. Really sad. Many, many long-term effects of this nonsense. That link brings you to a donation site. It shouldn't. Maybe I put the wrong link in. Let me see. No, it's the link goes to fill out this form to send a message. And it has a letter there that you can use. You can modify it. But maybe it asks for, and then there's a separate support. So, I don't know, maybe I typed the wrong thing in. I just put it in the chat. It's the right link, Tona. Sorry, this is where she's complaining about that. Huge change in subject, but do you think foamy viruses are worth studying? Yeah, I do. They're a very unique kind of retrovirus, and by studying them, it can help illuminate how retroviruses work in general. So I do think they're worth studying. I can't give you a specific reason, but that's the way science works, right? You do things which you can technically do, which you can get funded, and some of them don't go anywhere, and some of them have big benefits. But that's how science works. Hmm. What about raw milk and spread of H5? Yeah. mean, these are more infectious disease issues that require research and will presumably be limited. Environmental's going to stay home and lock my driveway gate. Well, you have to go out for food and stuff, right? You can't really do that. How does H5 get spread? Yeah, so influenza in general is spread by respiratory droplets, right? Just like SARS-CoV-2. It's airborne, yeah. But if you drink raw milk and there's H5N1 virus in it, as you're drinking, it's aerosolizing in your mouth and it gets into your upper respiratory tract, because remember your digestive and respiratory tracts are kind of connected really at the very top there. There's a flap that closes one so you don't get fluid in your lung when you swallow. But drinking causes aerosolation, and if there's virus, it will infect your upper tract. And they've done these studies in mice. They feed mice cow's milk with H5N1 virus, and it causes an upper respiratory tract infection. But, the cow's milk is not the way it's going to be spreading. It's going to be spreading by droplets if it's going to spread big time. An Idaho Health Department isn't allowed to give COVID vaccines anymore. Yeah, they were previously supplying them. You have to get your own now if you want to do it. So they were previously supplying, they're not doing that anymore. I can't imagine they'll draw the line at RFK. They agreed to gets tonight despite paying for sex with underage girls and drug buy. I don't understand this. Attorney General did something illegal. This is supposed to be a person who takes care of the law, and so now he's not going to take care of the law, right? All his buddies will get off, and anyone who opposed Trump and him will get in trouble. So that's bad. I didn't know that. Ay, ay, ay. Yeah, but the Times is now reporting, Vanity, that Trump admits he may not be confirmed. So I'm not sure it's a given yet. Kang sent his letter through Safe Communities Coalition to Senator Duckworth in Durban, but that's preaching to the choir. Oh, so Kang used the website and got a letter to go, so it works. That's good to know. So Getz is this congressman who was just elected, and he was accused of sex with an underage girl, 17-year-old. He was actually boasting about it in the House floor. And they were starting to bring charges against him, so he resigned because then Trump nominated him for AG, Attorney General. So how can you vote for a guy who's basically a pedophile? Really? You have no morals at all? It's all about party? This is the sick part. What do you think about the possibility of a recess appointment? I don't know what that means. Explain. Please explain. Kang needs clarification for TWIV 1161. How does a gene drive push a gene through a population of viruses? So the gene drive is basically a gene that you put into virus-infected cells. In this case, herpes simplex virus-infected cells, and it gets incorporated into the viral genome by recombination and provides some advantage. So its uptake is selected for. That's why we say it's a gene drive. The gene drives itself through the population. But you have an infected cell, you put the DNA in with your gene drive on it. The DNA recombines with the viral genome and pushes replication. And so if you want, you can also go the other way. You can decrease replication, which you want to do in herpes simplex infected people, right? You make the virus defective through this gene drive, and so it doesn't replicate and cause disease anymore. Yes, Elmug sent a letter to Senators Bennett and Hickenlooper here in Colorado. I'm sure they're voting against, but it can't hurt. Can't hurt. Send as many letters as you can, please. That's what I heard. Yeah, I just searched Vanity, and you get a lot of stories about him not being confirmed. I don't know. You got to be careful, right? Martin, thank you. Glad you enjoyed it. I'm making on Sunday spaghetti alla puttanesca. Ah, sounds great. Good luck. Hello, Sharon from Tasmania. You just missed a rant against RFK Jr. Go back and listen to it again. Although you're not in the U.S., but I think it's important for you to understand what's going on. As many people have already said in outside of the U.S. Tono, Novavax query. My pharmacist dislikes Novavax. Why does your pharmacist dislike it? What's the reason? Tell your pharmacist to show you what data convinced him or her that it's no good. The recall of the Novavax was because they had made a combined Novavax flu vaccine, and it was recalled because there were some adverse events, and that was studied and found out to be so. Someone had an illness, but it turned out to have nothing to do with the vaccine. But they did suspend licensure until they sorted that out, just to show you how safe vaccines are. The whole process is. So there's nothing wrong with Novavax. Many people think it gives better memory, but we don't know about that. All we do know is that it's less reactogenic. If you want to get it, it's fine. But I'd like to know why your pharmacist. Tell your pharmacist that a very premier virology podcast thinks it's fine. Yeah, Raphael, when you mix science with politics, you get politics. That's absolutely right. No question about it. Have the cows ever come home? Cows are okay with H5. Mike Schmidt says we need a Department of Education for it accredits all professionals like doctors, dentists, PAs, physical therapists, nurses, etc. Oh, Lollipop, I need to know how to respond to people like Bill Maher who say, we now know it did come from a lab. It has not been confirmed. This is a cultural belief. Scientifically, it has been proven that it came from nature. There's zero evidence that it came from a lab. Tell Bill Maher he's wrong. He's just following the cultural vibe about it. Scientists have provided evidence that it came from nature. Zero evidence that it came from a lab. Yeah, Michael Schmidt says, fluoride has done more to reverse tooth decay than any other intervention. Thank you, Michael. Oogie says, does pasteurization kill all bacteria and viruses? Michael, they kill... Michael, answer that. Do they kill most bacteria or all bacteria that would be present in milk? Inactivates influenza virus. I know that that's been done. Raise 11, thank you for your contribution to science communication. Really appreciate it. Before we wrap up in a few minutes, I see 213 viewers, 146 likes. Please hit the like button. That is one way we can try and attract other people who don't normally come here if this program gets a lot of likes. So hit the like button down there and try and do that. Kang says, we need education to learn how to ask questions, how to find answers, above all, to take the Socratic approach to question authority, hopefully without the hemlock. Yes, I hope that Microbe TV provides you with an education so you can ask the right questions. That's our purpose here, right? John says, I agree about his views on vaccines, but there are way too many obese. Well, this is not anything new. There are many obese people. There are too many people with heart disease and high blood pressure and diabetes and so forth, in part because of our lifestyle. Yes. But that's nothing new, and he's not going to cure it. And you don't try and address it by getting rid of research on infectious diseases. Okay? That's the dumb part. And by the way, we do science here on Microbe TV. Okay? So don't ever say we're being ignorant. I will admit when I'm wrong, but I am not ignorant. Yeah, lots of RFK's family reject his anti-science. That's right. All right, let's see a couple of more here before we wrap this up. I believe they stopped the measles vaccine, yeah, for a period. You go listen to this earlier, the earlier part of this office hours or the video I released yesterday on YouTube. It'll talk all about that. That's right. Anyone else considering leaving the country? So I thought about it for a while. And then I thought that I want to remain and fight because this is where I'm from. And for many years, I was very proud to be an American. It's less easy for me to say that now because it's so screwed up and people have such extremist views. But I don't know that any other place would be better for me, especially for what I do. So I'm staying here. Yep. Wow, this is great. A lot of questions, but we are almost out of time here. Yeah, stupidity crisis. Well, I think it's a failure to inform yourself. You just listen to the wrong people and you don't go check it for whatever reason. You believe Fox News and what they say. You don't question them. And you know they lie to you also. Will there be another live virology course? Not live, but I will be teaching it at Columbia and putting the lectures up as usual. Yeah, leaving up to states to make vaccine policy means that roughly half the states will have policies in place, and this will spill over to all the states. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. The RW has a vast media empire. Yeah, you bet. That's the problem. And Joe Rogan is part of the problem. They're even going after archaeologists. Oh my gosh. Patricia says RFK is thinking he can make kids' bodies healthier by taking away 2 to 3 random synthetic chemicals. And once that happens, he can take away the vaccines. Oh, this is very scientific. Really, there's a lot of basis for that. Oh my gosh. Go do an animal model and tell me what you find out. It's not the messaging, but the brainwashing by the mainstream media. There's something called journalistic ethics. Yes, Fox does not follow journalistic ethics at all. At all. How helpful is the virology book to help with lectures? The lectures should be enough to teach you virology. If you want to dive in more, the book can help you, but you don't need it to do well in the course. I saw a graph today showing cases of various diseases. Mumps cases started at the vaccine. No, there were mumps before. I probably have a graph that I can show you, but why don't you send me what you have there, and we'll figure it out. Yeah, there was an enthusiastic response to polio vaccine. But then, there was the Cutter incident where many kids got polio from an improperly prepared vaccine, and that tainted vaccines from that day on in 1955. Yeah. Ken, thank you for your support of science communication. Really appreciate it. And I will wrap this up now. Lalu, thank you for your support of science communication. We really appreciate it. Lots of good questions here left. Sorry I can't get to them, but bring them back. And one last comment from Alexi. I admire all your efforts. Thank you for standing up for science. I'm dreading what is going to happen with public health and science, is that it may affect other countries for sure. All right. Thanks, everyone, for coming. We're still missing a few likes. Try to hit the like button. I want to thank our moderators who were here tonight. We had Vanity Nutrition. We had Barb Mack. We had Les. And we had our buddy from Oregon, whose name is escaping me again. This is very bad, Vincent. Tom Steinberg. Sorry, Tom Steinberg. Thank you all for moderating. There were some nasty people here tonight. Thank you for silencing them. I hate to silence anyone, but there's no need to be nasty. There's no need to say we're just ignorant, because we're not. We're not the ignorant ones. And thanks to all of you for coming and participating. I think we're going to be talking about this for a while, but we'll also talk about science. As things happen, we'll talk about it here. We're not going to have an office hours next week because in the U.S. it is the night before Thanksgiving, and I don't want to do that to people. So our next office hours will be the 4th of December. Yeah, December 4th, 2024, the last month of this year. All right, everybody. Many, many thanks for coming and supporting our work. We'll see you in a couple of weeks. Till then, be safe. Good night.